I'm asking because after years of working with men over 50, I've learned that the earliest warning sign of declining health almost never shows up in the heart or the joints or even the brain. It shows up in a place most men are too embarrassed to talk about, a place they often avoid until the problem becomes impossible to hide. And many of my patients only realize it when it's already affecting their confidence, their energy, and even their identity as a man. But here's what they don't know, what most men never hear until it's too late. Your penis is often the very first part of your body to tell you that your circulation is weakening, that your hormones are shifting, or that your nerves are struggling to keep up. It doesn't whisper, it signals, and those signals matter far more than you think. I've seen men walk into my office frightened, confused, sometimes even ashamed, believing something is wrong with them, when in reality, their body has simply been trying to speak to them for months, sometimes years. And the moment they finally understand what these changes truly mean, something shifts. Fear turns into clarity, confusion turns into control. They stop feeling broken and start feeling informed. And that's exactly why I'm here with you today, because if you're a man over 50 and you've noticed even the smallest change in your response, your sensitivity, or your morning function, you need to hear this before you make the same mistakes so many of my patients did. Not to scare you, but to give you the one thing every man deserves: a real explanation and a real plan. Because the truth is this: you are not losing your masculinity. You are missing the care your body now requires. And once you understand why these changes happen and how to support your body the right way, everything begins to shift back in your favor. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how that happens. The reason I'm starting here is simple. Almost every man who sits in front of me believes his body changed suddenly. But the truth is far more subtle and far more important. These shifts don't hit like a storm. They creep in quietly, almost politely, the way a dimmer switch slowly lowers the lights in a room. And if you aren't paying attention, you miss the earliest signs your body is asking for help. Over the years, I've watched the same pattern unfold across hundreds of men in their 50s, 60s, and beyond. Their testosterone doesn't collapse overnight. It drifts downward slowly, about 1% per year after age 30, according to the American Urological Association. That sounds small, almost harmless, but when you stretch that decline across decades, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Not because libido disappears, but because the connection between desire and physical response begins to take longer, like a car that still wants to accelerate but needs more road to pick up speed. And it's not just hormones. The blood vessels, your body's internal highways, quietly begin to stiffen with time. Years of stress-sitting cholesterol or simply aging cause those vessels to lose elasticity. The arteries that once opened easily now require more effort, and the penis, being the organ with the smallest arteries in the entire body, notices those changes first, before the heart, before the brain, before anything else. I've lost count of how many men told me I felt fine until suddenly I didn't, when in reality their penis had been whispering the truth long before any other organ spoke up. But here's something I need you to hear, not as a doctor, but as someone who's watched countless men walk through the same fear. None of this means something is broken. It means your body has moved into a new phase, one that requires wisdom instead of willpower, awareness instead of denial. Aging isn't the enemy. Ignoring the messages your body sends is. And this is where most men make the quiet mistake that costs them years of confidence. They assume these changes are inevitable, unchangeable, untreatable. They think their body is slowing down, when in reality, it's asking for a different kind of care that keeps the system responsive, alive and strong. But here's the part that surprises many of my patients. And it may surprise you too. The very changes that worry men the most often become their greatest advantage when they learn what is actually happening inside their body. And if you think this part is eye-opening, wait until I explain why your penis is the very first place to detect deeper cardiovascular changes, often years before any doctor gives you a warning. And here's where everything becomes even more fascinating, because once you understand how gently these age-related changes begin, the next question practically jumps out on its own. Why does the penis notice these shifts before any other part of the body does? This is the moment where so many of my patients look at me stunned because they realize the problem they feared was a personal failure was actually a biological alarm system trying to protect them. Let me put this in the simplest, most honest way I can. Your penis is the smallest circulatory organ with the highest demand for blood flow in the shortest amount of time. That combination makes it incredibly sensitive, almost too sensitive to any decline in circulation. If your arteries were a network of pipes, the penile arteries would be the thinnest, most delicate ones. When cholesterol builds up or when those vessels start stiffening with age, the penis feels it long before the heart ever does. It's the same reason cardiologists have a saying, one I repeat often. Erectile changes show up 3 to 5 years before a cardiac event, not as a threat, but as a timeline. A study from the University of Chicago found that even a slight decline in morning erections can precede the first signs of cardiovascular disease. And I can't count how many times I've seen this happen in real patients. Their blood pressure was borderline, their cholesterol was climbing, but nothing felt urgent until something changed in their sexual response. That was their body whispering, something is off. Look at me. Don't ignore this. But here's the emotional piece. Most men never admit when that whisper shows up, they blame themselves. They internalize it. They panic quietly. They feel like they're losing a part of who they are. In reality, their body is not failing. It's reporting. It's communicating. It's saying, I need attention, not you're not enough. And once a man understands, this truly understands it, something incredible happens. Instead of spiraling into fear, he shifts into action. Instead of shame, he feels clarity. It's a moment I've witnessed again and again in my office. The fear in his face softens, his shoulders drop, and for the first time, he feels relief. Because the problem wasn't him, it was his circulation. And circulation can be supported. It can be improved. It can be rebuilt. That's why this part of your health is so important, not because it affects intimacy, though it does, but because it reflects the deeper health of your entire vascular system. When the penis speaks up, the rest of the body is right behind it. And listening early gives you a massive advantage. And if understanding that changed your perspective, what comes next will change the way you think about daily movement forever, because the simplest habits can revive the very system your penis depends on every single day. So if the penis is the earliest warning signal of circulation problems, the next question almost every patient asks me is, what can I actually do about it? And this is the part that surprises men the most, because they always expect me to begin with medications, supplements, or lab tests, but I don't. I start with something far simpler and far more powerful than anything you'll find in a pharmacy movement. Not workouts, not gym routines, not heavy weights, just movement, the kind your body was designed for long before modern life convinced you to sit for 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day. I can't tell you how many times I've watched men regain function, sensitivity, and confidence simply by reintroducing small bursts of movement throughout their day. There's a reason for this, and it's deeply biological. When you walk even for 5 minutes, you trigger your body to release nitric oxide, a natural chemical that relaxes and opens blood vessels. The Cleveland Clinic calls nitric oxide the master key of healthy erections, because without it, the penile arteries simply cannot open fully. And the moment those arteries stay tight, everything downstream struggles. But when you move, blood doesn't just circulate, it awakens. It pushes oxygen into tissues that have been stiff, slow, and starving for stimulation. It clears metabolic waste from the pelvic region. It restores elasticity to vessels that aging has quietly hardened. Think of it like shaking snow off a tree branch after a storm. The weight lifts, the branch rises, the structure becomes alive again. And here's where movement becomes even more critical. The penis relies heavily on something called endothelial function, the health of the inner lining of your blood vessels. Light physical activity improves that lining faster than any pill my patients have ever taken. In fact, a Harvard study found that men who walk just 30 minutes a day or reduce their risk of erectile problems by up to 41%. That's not a guess, that's data. But perhaps the most convincing proof doesn't come from research papers. It comes from men. I've worked with men who were convinced their situation was hopeless until they tried what I asked, walk after lunch, stretch their hips before bed, take slow breaths in the shower, or simply stand up every hour instead of sinking deeper into the couch. 48 hours later, they return, shocked. Why do I feel more responsive? Why does everything seem warmer down there? Why do I have morning activity again? Because movement isn't just exercise, it's circulation therapy. The truth is, your penis is a circulatory organ first and a sexual organ second. When your daily routine supports blood flow, you're not getting lucky, you're getting logical. You're finally giving your body what it has been quietly requesting for years. And if simple movement can do this much, wait until you see what happens when you support the nerves that control sensation, arousal, and responsiveness, because that system can weaken just as subtly as circulation, and it needs a completely different kind of attention. And once my patients begin to feel what better circulation can do, the very next thing they realize is that something still feels muted, not gone, not broken, just quieter, like the volume has been turned down on a part of themselves they used to hear loud and clear. And that's when we need to talk about the second system that shapes a man's sexual response just as much as blood flow does the nerves. If circulation is the fuel, then your nerves are the electrical wiring. They carry every signal, every spark of desire, every sensation, every message that tells the brain, I feel this. But with age, stress, poor sleep, alcohol, and even certain medications, those nerves fire more slowly. Not because they're dead, but because they're tired, worn, overloaded. And just like a weak Wi-Fi signal, the message still gets through. It just arrives later, weaker, blurred around the edges. Here's the part most men never hear from any doctor. Your penile nerves are some of the most delicate in the entire body. They sit close to the surface. They rely heavily on oxygen, and they're deeply connected to your lower back, your pelvis, and even your emotional state. So when life puts pressure on you, physically or mentally, those nerves are often the first to pull back. I've seen this pattern in men from every background. A businessman under non-stop stress suddenly loses sensitivity. A retired veteran sits too long each day, and the nerve pathways that once fired effortlessly begin to slow. A man who drinks regularly wakes up one morning, realizing the sensations he used to feel clearly now feel distant. They think something is wrong with them, but what's really happening is something I explain gently because it changes everything. Nerves can be reawakened. They can be retrained. They can be restored. So how do we do that? Not with force, not with pressure, not with performance in mind, but with connection. Warmth is one of the greatest healers of nerve tissue. A warm bath relaxes the pelvic muscles and improves nerve conduction. Gentle massage across the lower abdomen, the inner thighs, or the hip flexors helps stimulate the sensory pathways that support arousal. Slow breathing lowers cortisol, a hormone that interferes with nerve signaling and allows the communication between brain and body to return to a more natural rhythm. And then there's nourishment. B vitamins, especially B12, help maintain the myelin sheath, the protective coating around nerve fibers. Hydration supports the electrical charge nerves need to fire. And reducing alcohol gives your nerves a chance to recover instead of constantly fighting inflammation. But the most powerful piece isn't physical at all, it's emotional. Nerves don't respond well to pressure or self-criticism. When a man approaches his body with tension, those nerves contract even more. But when he approaches with curiosity, patience, and presence, the nervous system softens. I've watched men regain sensitivity they thought was gone forever, simply because they learned to stop fighting their body and start listening to it. That is the moment everything begins to shift, not just physically, but psychologically. The body becomes a place of safety again, not a source of anxiety. And when that happens, response improves naturally. Sensation returns, desire feels more grounded, and intimacy becomes less about performance and more about connection. Something men forget their nervous system depends on just as much as their partner does. And if restoring nerve health can create this level of change, what comes next will transform your comfort more than anything else, because the skin itself plays a role most men never even think about. And once the nerves begin to reawaken, something interesting happens. Men start to notice sensations they haven't paid attention to in years, warmth, pressure, subtle shifts. But this is also when many of them discover something they never expected. Even the skin itself can hold them back, not because of appearance, but because of comfort, friction, and sensitivity. And this is the part most men overlook completely. Let me explain it the same way I explain it to my patients. The skin in this area is some of the thinnest, most delicate tissue on the entire body. It doesn't have the same thickness or oil production as your face or your hands. It dries faster, irritates easier, and responds instantly to friction sweat or changes in hygiene. And as men age, that skin becomes even more fragile. The natural oils decrease, elasticity drops, hydration shifts. Suddenly, what used to feel normal now feels tight, dry, or overly sensitive, and many men misinterpret those changes as a sexual problem when in reality, it's a skin problem. I've had patients sit across from me, embarrassed, describing discomfort they've quietly tolerated for months, a raw feeling, chafing, small tears, irritation after intimacy or sensitivity that feels off. And every time I need to remind them, this isn't failure, this is biology. Your skin is aging just like the rest of your body, and it needs support too. Gentle, consistent care is the solution. Nothing harsh, nothing scented, nothing aggressive. Warm water, not hot. Mild, fragrance-free cleansers. A gentle moisturizer once or twice a week to restore the hydration the skin naturally loses with age. Just that alone can transform comfort. And for men who sweat heavily or wear tight clothing, a light dusting of talc-free powder can reduce friction dramatically, preventing the irritation that silently chips away at confidence. What's even more important is what not to use. I always tell my patients, if a product stings your face, it has no business being anywhere near your most sensitive skin. No alcohol-based wipes, no harsh soaps, no aggressive scrubbing. Your goal isn't to make the area look a certain way, it's to keep it healthy, supple, and calm. Because when the skin is calm, the nerves relax. And when the nerves relax, your entire sexual response becomes smoother, stronger, and more natural. And something powerful happens when men begin caring for their skin this way. They don't just feel physical relief. They feel emotionally safer in their own bodies. They stop fearing discomfort. They stop bracing for irritation. They stop avoiding intimacy because of dryness or friction. Instead, they regain a sense of comfort and confidence they didn't realize they were missing. But if the skin and nerves play such a crucial role in your experience, there's still one system left that shapes everything from performance to desire to connection, and men rarely see how deeply it affects them until we talk about it, because what comes next isn't physical at all. It's psychological, and it can change more than any vitamin exercise or routine you've ever tried. And once the skin becomes healthier and the nerves begin firing again, there's one more layer we have to address, because no matter how strong the circulation is or how healthy the nerves are, your sexual response cannot fully return unless your mind feels safe. And this is the part most men never talk about, even with me, until they're sitting in my office, running out of explanations and blaming themselves for something that isn't their fault. What I've learned after years of listening to men husbands, leaders, fathers, quiet thinkers, silent worriers, is that the greatest pressure they feel doesn't come from their body. It comes from their expectations, their fear of decline, their belief that their masculinity is measured only in performance. And when those fears build up, something powerful happens inside the nervous system. It tightens, it pulls back, it becomes guarded instead of receptive. I've watched men describe this tension without even realizing it. They say things like, I don't feel like myself, or my body doesn't respond the way it used to, or I'm worried what this means for my relationship. But beneath those sentences, there's always the same unspoken truth. They're scared. Scared of aging, scared of disappointing their partner, scared of losing a part of themselves they've identified with their whole lives. And here's the scientific part. Most people never learn cortisol. The stress hormone literally reduces blood flow to the pelvic region. It interferes with nerve signaling. It short-circuits desire, not because the body is broken, but because the body is protecting itself. When stress rises, your nervous system shifts into survival mode, not intimacy mode. The brain doesn't care about pleasure when it thinks you're in danger. So even if your body is capable, your mind becomes the bottleneck. But here's the part that changes everything. When a man stops fighting his body and starts understanding it, the entire system relaxes. The shoulders loosen, the breath deepens, the nerves open, the blood vessels respond. I have seen men regain function simply because they learn to let go of the pressure to perform and instead allowed themselves to be present with their partner, present with their body, present with the moment. And this shift doesn't require meditation retreats or complicated therapy. It often starts with something much simpler: breathing, slowly allowing the body to settle, touching the body without expectation, letting intimacy be exploration instead of performance. When men approach themselves with curiosity instead of criticism, the nervous system responds in ways that feel almost miraculous. Because the truth is, sexual health after 50 is not just physical. It is deeply emotional. And when the emotional layer softens, the physical layer often follows right behind it. That's why I tell my patients, your mindset is not the last step, it's the unlock. And once this unlocks, something extraordinary becomes possible. Not just improvement, but transformation. Because now, the body, the nerves, the skin, the breath, the mindset, they finally begin working together instead of against each other. And this is exactly where we bring everything home, because the final message I want you to understand is the foundation that ties this entire routine together. As we reach the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with something simple but deeply important. Everything we've talked about, your circulation, your nerves, your skin, your mindset, these aren't separate pieces. They're one system working together, shaping how you feel, how you connect, and how confidently you move through your life as a man. And none of these changes you've noticed are a sign of failure. They're signs that your body is asking for care, not judgment, support, not pressure, attention, not fear. You deserve to feel strong in your body. You deserve comfort, clarity, and confidence, not confusion or shame. And I want you to remember this: it is never too late to rebuild your health. I've seen men in their 50s, 60s, even 70s come back stronger simply because they finally understood what their body was trying to tell them, and they listened. So take this routine with you. Treat your circulation with movement. Treat your nerves with patience. Treat your skin with gentleness. Treat your mind with compassion. And most importantly, treat yourself with the same respect you give to the people you love, because your health deserves that. If this video helped you even a little, I hope you'll save it so you can come back to these steps whenever you need a reminder. And if you want more honest, science-backed guidance for men's health, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because I share new practical medical advice every week to help you stay strong, stay informed, and stay connected to your body. Before you go, tell me in the comments, what part of your health do you want me to talk about next? Your questions help me create videos that actually serve you, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. You're not alone in this journey, and the best version of you is still ahead.